Steve, thanks so much for having me out here to Dakota Dunes to talk about Tyson Fresh Meats and some of the work you guys have been doing to address customer needs a little bit more and whatnot. For this video, though, I wanted to talk more on the employee team member side of the equation. You guys have a program called We Care. Can you talk a little bit about what that We Care program is, and then we'll get into kind of the history and what it has done for the company moving forward?
Sure. We Care really is a focal point that we have developed over time to change the culture in our organization, specifically and initially around safety. But as we got into the process, and there are specific steps and specific processes that are part of the We Care program, and those parts, it starts with one key fundamental, is that it's a top-down led program. So myself, as the leader of this part of the organization in the fresh meat space, it's incumbent in the program that I am engaged and I am driving expectations throughout the system to what it is that we need to do, and what that is communicate. What this whole We Care process did and has done and continues to do is give us a venue to which we do better at communicating to our team members, whether it's management or hourly, our expectations around safety, doing it right, pausing when things are out of the norm, looking after each other. One of the ancillary programs that came from We Care is what we call I Got Your Back, which is our expectations that team members will watch out for each other, that if they see somebody out there not doing something correctly, or if we see an equipment failure or something along those lines, people are comfortable with raising their hands and say, hey, we want you to be careful. But it's not just telling them to communicate. What we did was we provided the tools and the professionals to go out there and help them and practice what we were preaching. We go out as a senior management team to the plants on a regular basis, visit with them, talk to them specifically around this program about what's working, what's not working, and it's really opened up the door of communication and expectations across the board, because it forces our management to continue to work with their teams in developing a better line of communications that is centric to safety, getting people to think about what if. I talk a lot in our organization about productive paranoia, about having an understanding that there are certain things out there that are inherently dangerous. Now, we try to engineer safety in wherever we possibly can, but nothing's perfect. And sometimes you just can't foresee where there might be a potential. So what we're trying to do with the program is get everybody on board to, number one, be looking for where the problem potentially exists, making sure that we're reacting when we see those things, and that we constantly communicate not just what I would call negative issues, where you see somebody doing something wrong and saying, hey, don't do this, but actually come back and start with a positive response. And part of our communication process that we use, the management supervisor will come up to an employee and say, hey, I'm going to watch you work. I'm just looking at your safety piece. I want to watch you work, and then we're going to talk. And when they talk, the first three things they have to talk about are positive things that they're seeing them do right, before they bring up anything that we need to tweak or change or adjust in the process and how they function in their jobs. That piece alone opened up unbelievable doors of opportunity. And it's not just in the plants that we're doing this. We're also doing this here in the corporate office. And it's actually been a harder sell in this arena because people don't think about safety in a corporate environment. But one of the first things we focused on was just walking out to the parking lot. Mm-hmm. Because over time, you see people going different paths, most of them not using marked crosswalks. Well, the old days of employee safety, it was, hey, use the crosswalk, right? Mm-hmm. Versus nowadays, as we use the appropriate messaging technique through the We Care process, we teach people how to say, hey, I'm glad that you looked and use the handrail coming down the steps when you came out the door. I'm glad you looked both ways before traffic came. You know, do you suppose we could think about using the crosswalk here instead of crossing where there is no crosswalk? Because, you know, this day and age, people do drive distracted around there. And we can't control that all the time. And there's a higher potential for people to see you if you're crossing in the crosswalk rather than not. And I really don't want you getting hurt. So that's a different message.
Very different. Very different.
And that's what we're teaching our teams to do across the entire organization. It's a different approach, and quite frankly, it is a much more user-friendly approach.
It's very interesting because I coach Little League Baseball, and the league I'm part of, we use the Positive Coaching Alliance, and it's very similar to that. You teach the kids by starting with the positive and going to the negatives after that, or the criticisms or suggestions, whatever you want to call them. So it's very interesting to hear that applied in a corporate office kind of a setting or a meat plant setting. So that's very cool. So is there any quantifiable accomplishments that you can point to out of this program, you know, other than, you know, the crosswalk example? Have there been, you know, any noticeable differences at the plant level or the operations side in terms of what this program has brought to the table?
I won't get into specific numbers, but what I will tell you is this. There are ancillary benefits to this process. So you go back through and you look. So this region, in the Siouxland region where our office is, it's like a 2.8% unemployment rate. And it's not any better when you get out to any place that we are located from a plant perspective. But I will tell you right now, today, as we stand in our fresh meats group, we have record low turnover in our plants. So now all of a sudden, instead of going out there and retraining hundreds upon hundreds of people or starting from scratch basically of trying to train somebody how to do the job, now you've got people that are there on a consistent basis. And when there's more consistency in team member attendance, now there's more ability for better yields on harvest, better efficiencies in the process. There's just so many better things that happen because of it. There are very specific and very valuable business advantages to managing it this way.
Well, and Tyson as a whole, not just the fresh meat side, has always been really good to its employees. It's always had programs like this. How does this build? Is this just a natural extension off of a lot of those programs that have been historically put through for the employees, for the team members at Tyson, or is this really truly a big jump from what Tyson has always kind of been known for?
I would tell you that it's to me it's a pretty significant shift. Better.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because in every business you have certain metrics you have to hit. If you don't hit those metrics, you don't survive as a business. You are not guaranteed a space in the success program, right? You have to make your success. And I would say in the history of our business, and quite frankly, I believe in the history of most American business, it was always about you got to get the numbers. Unfortunately, I think there for a long time it got to be you got to get the numbers regardless. Well, that message, we changed that message. My message to our team today is we still have to hit those numbers. Because if you don't hit the numbers, you don't survive. Your stockholders aren't happy, your board of directors isn't happy, and we all know what happens when everybody's unhappy long enough, right? We still have to take care of the consumer. We still have to take care of our investors. We still have to take care of our employees. But so the bottom line is this: the numbers we still have to hit, but it's not just getting the numbers, it's how we get the numbers that's important. When you talk about sustainability, when you talk about animal well-being, when you talk about all these components that we keep hearing about how sustainable is a business, they all wrap up into this one conversation about doing it right. Quite frankly, the focus is more, we talk a lot around here about process and control. So you go back out and you look at the mindset. The old operational mindset was we're able to run at this speed, and you ran it. And if you shut off the chain for any reason, it was, just all heck broke loose, right? Well, nowadays it's a different conversation. To keep the process in control, what do you have to do different? Do you have to slow down? Do you have to fix a piece of equipment? You know, operations people are very good at doing workarounds. If something's broken, do a workaround. The problem is, over time, what I think ultimately happens is you have a tendency to do more workarounds than you do fixing what's broken. And quite frankly, if you fixed what's broken first, took the time, took the 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it was, to fix that problem and solve that, now you're back to running a normal process rather than stacking up a bunch of stuff and running a whole bunch of rework and keeping people over and creating all kinds of turmoil. You got people working outside of their normalized jobs and doing different motions they're not accustomed to, and that's where people get hurt. Whereas if you say time out, process and control, this is out of control, we're not going to do this. One of the hardest things we had in the We Care process was teaching our employees it was okay to shut off the chain. They have complete authority to do that. Every employee out there has the ability to shut off the chain, and I will tell you, for the longest time, they were afraid to do it. I will tell you today, they're not afraid to do it. And the fun part about it is, when we first started down this path, our management folks were scared to death. Because in their minds, they weren't ever going to run. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It was completely the other way around. We had to push our employees to trust us that we wouldn't get all wild and crazy if they shut the chain off because there's a problem. Mm-hmm. And they don't shut it off unless there's a problem. When there's a problem, we get in there and we fix it. And the fact that they see us doing that now, they see us not only telling them to be safe, which we've always done, now we're showing them how to be safe. And we're showing them that it's our expectation that we don't want them cutting corners that puts them or their team members at risk. Are we perfect? No, but we're a lot better than we've seen a 60% reduction in OSHA recordables in the last 3 years.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. And you know, we always started this program with the goal to be zero, right? And so when I'm out in the plants talking to our employees, particularly our management and you know, middle management and upper management, my question to them was always, did you believe when we started this that zero was possible? There isn't a person that believed it at the time. My question today is, do you believe today that we can get there? And every one of them has told me absolutely categorically yes, because we've seen it happen. We've had entire cut floors and entire harvest floors go months without an OSHA recordable injury or illness.
Wow.
And I've never seen that before in my career, and I've been at this 36 years. And like I said, we're not completely there yet, because we have to get to the point that we're not reacting, but we're being proactive. And that's a lot harder to do.